So, from wherever in the world you're watching or listening to us, thank you for joining us here at the Great British Mickey Waffle. Today, we are taking you down a trip down memory lane, celebrating the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, Epcot Centre, which is celebrating its 42nd birthday this week. Share your own memories in the chat and just enjoy the wonderment that only Epcot can provide. Welcome to the Great British Mickey Waffle live.
Now my wheels in motion and my windows open with the wind blowing in my hair. I'm driving down the highway, gonna do this my way. I can feel it in the air. Here
I go. Here we go. And actually, I've got to say, this is one of those shows. Like we talked last week about shows that we've not been able to do. This is another one that is just hoping that we'll be able to take people to just remember some of the absolutely amazing parts of Epcot that were there before, that are there now, and maybe some of the things that we all remember. And who better to share all those reminiscences with? But we've got Claire. Good evening to you. How are you?
Good evening to you.
Sure.
I am here.
Almost
In one piece. It's kind of one of those weeks. So I am really glad to be here with my friends, with you and with Simon and with our friends in the chat, because it always makes me feel better having been
it does.
waffling live.
It just I don't know, it just adds a bit to your week, doesn't it? Yeah. And we've got Simon, who did such a sterling job last Wednesday and led us all astray on the back roll and things like that. So we've all sobered up. We've all sobered up just in time to do it all again this week.
I don't know about sobered up. Every day's a drinking day, John.
Nothing wrong with that, I must admit. Before we begin, I'm going to shamelessly plug the new podcast that came out only yesterday. Now, already, I'm very aware so many people have actually messaged me personally and just said how much they enjoyed listening to it. It was an absolute joy to actually record it. But it was just such a really good reflection. And I just thank everybody who's listened to it so far. If you haven't, go back and have a listen. Go and find it after the show. And I've said it, Claire, before we started. It's one of the shows that you never thought that we'd ever do. And it was just lovely. It really was. And it's just got a real warmth and a real, I don't know, it's just really poignant for me anyway. Just mainly because it's all about me going back to.
All about you for a change.
No,
I was going to say, John, is it because it was all about you?
Oh dear. See, I dig myself into my own hole, really. You know? But yeah, it was really good. And actually, one of the things I wasn't aware of when we recorded it, it's got loads of different holiday planning tips. And so that was another thing that sort of has come up regarding like some mobile entry into the United States, and also about the visitor car pass and things like that. So loads of stuff to just get your teeth into, and loads of stuff to actually just know that, you know, I think Ben and Becca have been to what was it? I never remember. It's either Kekis or Kikis, whichever way you pronounce it. I'll probably get it wrong anyway. Kikis. Yeah, there you go.
Otherwise, it sounds like Italian for something that you don't want to talk about.
It reminds me of a racing driver, Keke Rosberg, from all those years ago. You see, that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe it's
you see, I'll keep it clean. You see, for a change, you know. But yeah, they were there today. So if you haven't seen, I'm sure there's put pictures on socials. I haven't even been to social media today, so that'll be a nice surprise for me later on. But yeah, we're doing all things Epcot, and I just think this could go anywhere. So be prepared for, you know, this is just one of those shows that it's just like from the top of your head.
Free for all.
Yeah, just and actually, if you think we're not discussing something that we should be discussing, then put it in the chat. We'll come back to it. And hopefully we'll maybe cover your favorite stuff, my favorite stuff, and everyone else's favorite stuff. So let's start. Simon, I'm going to start with you. So I'm just going to put it out there. What's one of your favorite memories? Your favorite bits of Epcot of the past?
So there's two bits that I really remember. Like one of my first memories was a honeymoon trip, which was my first trip to Disney World. I remember how quiet Epcot was. It was a time in November, and it was just really quiet.
Yeah,
and that was my first enduring memory of Epcot, was being able to enjoy it when it wasn't quite as mobbed as it gets now. The other memory I have was Food and Wine Festival, when they did this was pre-COVID, when they had the wine and cheese offering that they used to do at the what's the building out the back that they were going to turn into the play pavilion?
The Wonders of Life Pavilion.
Wonders of Life Pavilion. Yeah, they did all the seminars in there.
Yeah,
cool.
And the lasting memory of that thing was that's what gave me my obsession with cheese. Before that, I'd been sort of indifferent to cheese for a long time. I was like, I could live without cheese. I went and did a cheese and wine pairing thing.
Oh, always dangerous.
And that was me done then. I was.
So there you go.
So that's stuck with me ever since.
I think that's a really nice way of actually kicking this all off, because I think for everyone, it doesn't matter when your first time going to Epcot ever was. It kind of it has changed so significantly, and your memories of it change, and your experience of it change, and so it becomes a type of park that, you know, I think Walt first envisaged the whole thing with building theme parks. That evolution is something that is to be expected and to be actually welcomed. I think that might be a little bit of the theme as we go through the show. Claire, what about you?
Do you know what? Epcot has always been one of those parks that, when I think about Walt Disney World, I'm a very visual thinker. I think in pictures and feelings. And when I think about Walt Disney World, I don't think of Cinderella Castle. I always think of Spaceship Earth. That is my enduring thought process. That's the icon that comes to my mind whenever I talk to people about Walt Disney World. And I remember going there in the early 90s with my family. I was a teenager, and there are just a few things. And interestingly, Wonders of Life Pavilion is one of those things, Simon, that I remember really clearly going there, and all of the goofy like cycles they had in there, the activity things, and you could, it was like a recumbent bike, and you'd cycle and you'd go around the parks, and on a screen in front of you, it's like the 90s version of Peloton. But maybe not quite so good. And that was cool. And actually, Peloton, if you're listening, could you get the Walt Disney Parks on your screens, please? That would be awesome if you could run or cycle around Walt Disney World.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. And then, some of those attractions that are no longer there in the Wonders of Life. So there was Cranium Command. There was, The Making of Me. And, all those cracking things that are no longer there. And I just remember being amazed at how much could fit into quite a small building, or what felt like a small building. It clearly wasn't. When you're 12, everything feels quite big. And I just, there's so many bits of Epcot that are iconic to me, whether that be standing watching the seas, the living seas as it was, and standing at the aquarium for hours and hours, happily just sitting there watching the fish, or whether that be, I'm trying to think, the original Journey into Imagination. I remember meeting Figment and Dreamfinder.
I know. I've got a picture. I've got a picture of that. This is good. Yeah. Look. And so that's one of my first memories of Epcot, and actually, I still, I don't know.
See, I prefer that. I always want to know whether that was Ron Schneider or not, because obviously he played the walkabout, and I never know whether I am Ron or not. But those and it, like you, Simon, it was empty. So those walkways around what was Future World, there was just nobody there. You're just like big, wide open walkways with no one. It was one of those places that I didn't get all of the stuff, there was some stuff that my parents really enjoyed that I was like, really? Are you sure this is cool? I'm not so sure. But as I've now got to their age, I'm like, this is so cool. I remember Communicore and going in there and booking a restaurant on the screen. And I know I've had this conversation with a couple of friends, Lloyd, who used to be on the show. We've talked about this many times because we're the same age. And actually, Anna, anyone who watches the show knows Anna is my best friend. And we met talking about the Wonders of Life Pavilion on a previous podcast, iteration of a podcast, and that's how we connected. So it does have a really special place in my heart, definitely. What about you, John? Though,
it's really strange. It's really strange, Claire, because a lot of those older pavilions, when you were of an age, when you first go, they really, once you'd seen them once, you felt as if, okay, I've seen that, I can tick it off the list and stuff like that. I just feel that my biggest memory, because I certainly, when we went at Christmas, and it was actually the characters were on the bus, and that for me is one of those moments that, as someone as cynical as me, sort of sees that, and it's like, oh, it's Christmas, yeah, okay, it can't be blah, blah, blah. And actually, once you begin to see this complete park with the massive Christmas tree, you just get absorbed into it. And then obviously, like we said, I think a few weeks ago when we were talking about parades and things, the actual parade that was in Epcot was just something that just, even to this day, and I've been desperately trying to find photographs that we took at the time. And actually that's probably epitomizes probably how old some of it is, because you just didn't waste photographs. You just couldn't. And so they've gone in a box somewhere, and the box is obviously kept for posterity, but you can't access it. And I think that for me is quite a sad thing. And when you look at how quickly some of the things that you were seeing within Epcot, because it was at the time, it was futuristic, but time very quickly caught up with a lot of that, and I think it's really quite it must be an awful job to know that, once you've actually finished designing and putting a new attraction in, it's basically out of date. And
it's already out of date.
And it must. I think that's how they've had to reinvent so much of it, purely on that fact of the longevity of some of the things, and also the business model that actually started off, because all of those pavilions were all sponsored by big names that were prepared to put money in and pay for attractions, etc. Now, in this day and age, that's never going to happen to the extent at which they managed it to begin with, and to actually get governments to pay for different lands to be built. And it's quite hilarious to think of how they managed to get the funding together to build the park, by basically selling off bits of it to governments that were prepared to pay. I was interested. I was just, as an aside, I do a bit of research for the show, but sometimes. But earlier in the week, I'd actually stumbled across an article which talked about they basically got Spain nailed on for a land within World Showcase, and then the Spanish government got voted out, and almost overnight, the Disney organization were basically ghosted by the new Spanish government, and they suddenly found themselves, they've got this contract drawn up, and the Spanish didn't want to have anything to do with it whatsoever. And I'm thinking, that is what a sad loss to the whole of Epcot that is, and just you think about just that whole bit where there's other countries that could have been put in, didn't get the green light, etc. It's just like it blows my mind. And I think for me, the one thing that will always be with me is the music of Epcot. And I think no matter how much they reinvent it, I think it's the music. It's just beautiful. It really is. And
always in my head.
I just think as you take the park as a whole, and I think as a child it's difficult to understand it immediately. But as you grow older and you maybe, I wouldn't say, I do enjoy a good roller coaster. I do enjoy, the thrill rides and things like that. But actually, Epcot's more than that. And again, I think we mentioned it in the podcast that was out yesterday, about the Journey of Water with Moana, and how true to the original ethic that was brought into the park. It is immensely clever.
It's just so unique as a concept, this edutainment, and being able to.
I've got to admit, Claire, I know we managed to do that at one point together, and I actually think was it our first time of seeing it? Yeah. And so you'd seen it. You're walking us through, and it was one of those moments where you're actually watching a grown-up, just trying to suss out exactly how on earth this thing has actually just held your attention for so long. It's absolutely amazing, and I just feel that moving Epcot forward again, that the same people are involved in some of the other designs, because it is so clever. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how tall you are or how short you are. You can be a toddler and you will see different things in that attraction than the grown-ups, and you'll come out and they'll be able to explain, did that, and the grown-up will be like, I didn't see that, because it's not everything's at different heights. It's just absolutely brilliantly put together. Brilliant.
And surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I mean, which year did you go to Epcot first, John?
Can
you remember?
I think it's about mid-90s.
Okay. Simon, were you early 2000s?
No, 2009.
2009.
That was my first Disney trip. Yeah.
Okay. I was 1991, so quite a spread, even just between the three of us. Do you know the thing that I do remember really clearly, and I'm slightly sad isn't there anymore, and maybe it is there, and I just haven't looked at that carefully, is the sparkly pavement. I have a bit of a thing about the floors in Walt Disney World, and my concrete love.
John has a thing about toilets.
Yeah, right. So I have this thing about the ground and all the different concretes and all the impressions in them and the cool stuff that happens, and the sparkly ground as you walk down the path either side of Spaceship Earth on the way out, because it was dark, and there was the fiber optic cables in the concrete blocks that like the slabs, and they were like a reddish colour with the flag things over the top. Near Fountain of Nations, and as you walked around there and between Spaceship Earth and Innovations, and the ground would sparkle, and I just remember this like.
But that was so nice, and actually
glittery.
Yeah, but what they've replaced it with, and
it's super cool.
Yeah, but also the saddest thing is that some of the new lighting that's gone in is already broken.
I'm sure they'll replace it soon. I'm sure they'll change the bulb.
They will. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what what other people have said in the chat. So
yeah,
Wendy has talked about Wonders of Life, World of Motion, and Spaceship Earth. And
I think let's can we just go back to World of Motion, because actually I'm really intrigued. Like I say, I'm showing off because I actually done some research for the show. But World of Motion, for those who don't know, was the original test in the original test track building, etc. The notion, and we haven't seen exactly what will come of it, but you're beginning to see that they're actually going back to that same entrance in this reimagined test track, and I really hope that they managed to actually put together something that has a nod towards that original World of Motion, and I think for me that would be a really clever way of doing it.
Remind me, was this the song from World of Motion? Was that "It's Fun to Be Free"?
Oh, I can't remember, Claire. Not sure.
In the chat, Wendy. Sam.
It's fun to be free.
It's fun to be free. To be on the move. I remember that.
But isn't it weird though? You look back and you see some of the shaky VHS video that people took in the day. Which again,
not just in the day. There are still people doing that. I think. I've seen some not that long ago.
careful now. But there's,
I'm talking about Ben. Obviously. He's not here.
but
So
this, he was earlier. I think.
I know.
He was in the chat.
he's drunk by the pool. So
Yeah, that's
say
true.
what we
Yeah,
want.
they were taking wine down the pool. But yeah, that whole thing of amalgamating the old with the new, I'm gonna hold my court on this a little longer, because when we talk about Horizons, and I know people, I've got a real thing about Horizons. I know a lot of people in the chat probably will. I know we mentioned a good long while back. I remember Joe Logan was on our Facebook group of Waffle Arms, and also made mention of the fact you have to mention Horizons.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to put the two of them together. Horizons actually is still deemed as being one of the things that, you know, the whole of Epcot was built upon. And what you will notice if you look at the photo, there are parts of Horizons that still exist in different attractions throughout Walt Disney World, which is you know, it's recycling at the highest level. If you go back and watch videos, and this is where I'm coming to, so for World of Motion and Horizons as well, you go back and watch those videos now, and you would realize that actually, if time had stood still and they hadn't replaced these attractions, nobody would go to Epcot, because the basic would be, you've seen it once, you've seen it a couple of times. What's the point in actually going and seeing it again? And it's as sad as it is. I've actually got. I was going to start the show this week, and it was going to be like a more or less a paying tribute to everything that Epcot used to be. And actually, I don't feel that now. And I've watched the videos, and I thought, do you know something? That's a bit boring. And I think for kids,
evolution's incredible.
Yeah, and I think for kids today, if they were going to see these, you know, if they were going to go and experience Horizons, or they were going to do World of Motion, they'd be like,
no kids today are going to sit through veggie fruit.
you know?
I think the world's poorer for it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I agree, Simon. I surprised myself, because I was really in the mood this week to have a good rant about they shouldn't change stuff. They shouldn't be out, but actually it's changed, and actually you can see why they've actually put the change in. And you know, we're talking now, like you get rid of World of Motion, you put Test Track in part 1 with a.
See, I like the crash.
I
thought it was brilliant. Yeah, I thought that setup was really good.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed that more than the most recent iteration.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, you know, that's what I really like, is the fact that rather than just saying, "Oh well, we can just leave it; it'll be all right," people are actually there, and they're being quite critical of where it, you know, what it looks like to this generation, who are, you know, building their own theme parks and computer games, building their own cities in computer games. To go and just basically pimp up a car as you go, before, you know, as a way of actually making the queue line. It's fun, but I don't think it doesn't hit the buttons, does it, for a lot of kids? And I think just that modernization part of it's really important.
If they could have incorporated the crash test element of the old ride with the sim car making design of the new ride,
how safe is your car?
Yeah. I think that would that might, because I always thought that the sim track part of the first bit of the new test track not quite. I mean, it's a bit sort of pointless. All the bit of the old crash test one actually had like cobbled surfaces, and you were there was an element of like Whereas I don't think the new one quite, that first bit is a bit irrelevant in the ride. It's just too fast, straight bits for me. But but it's still good that they've kept the test track thing there, and then obviously they've confirmed the new one's going to have that reference back to World of Motion. Yeah, so they have included that point in there. I think they're trying to hark back to. There's obviously a cult following with a lot of those rides.
Absolutely.
You see it with the same with Horizons, right? That's got a really big cult following. Journey to Imagination, the old original version of that has Figment has the cult following. People hate the new cutback, slightly rubbish version. But yeah, you could argue whether Mission Space was a better replacement for Horizons. It's kind of it's a good experience, but that is definitely something that if you do the rough version of it, you're probably only going to do that once and say, I'm never doing that again.
I'll do it every time. I think it's a bit of a Marmite ride, though. You either love it or hate it, and some people just can't deal with the motion of it. But I Mission Space for me is one of the best, and actually Mills loves it as well as a child. Since she was like 6, she's been like, I love this ride. She hasn't done Orange yet, though. She's only done Green. We haven't let her go in the centrifuge yet. So.
I think it's quite interesting when you again just widen it out again and looking at the way Smuggler's Run in the studios was actually put in, and how much that has kind of taken that little step further forward of what Mission Space's actually intention was, because actually the technologies have moved on that little bit more, and so the buttons do make a difference when you press the buttons.
Don't you wish that they would just update some of the like Mission Space? They could just update it in terms of keep the same attraction, keep the same feel, because like the inside of that building is amazing, where you've got all of the astronauts. It's so good, and actually then update the tech so that it is interactive. It does give you a different experience each time. You know, it isn't always slingshot around the moon. All sorts of different. I just think that would re-energize that attraction so much that it would become popular again. In the same way that, you know, Guardians, you don't know which song you're going to get, so you keep rewriting it. It would be quite cool to have a different opportunity every time you got, you know, there's lots of places in space you could go to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I do think that's something that Epcot as a park has always suffered with. If you think back to lots of especially like the Innoventions area and why that was created was to be almost like that World Fair, Science Fair kind of presentation space. They were supposed to have those rotational exhibitions and company exhibits that would like change iteratively on like a rolling basis. But I think they always struggled with that idea of trying to keep something current. It would take them so long to develop an idea that would both satisfy the organization that wanted to put something in there and satisfy Disney's requirement for going in their park. By the time they've come up with the idea and then put it in there, technology, like, it's been exponential growth. So, like, I think Apple, they had a stand in there in the 90s. But could you imagine if they, like, what they would be like today? They would have the ability to change stuff, but to develop something back then, it wasn't maybe quite as fast moving. But nowadays, to the rate you would have to change the stuff in Innoventions would probably be that. I mean, that's probably why it's not there anymore, right? But I think that's something that they always struggle with. A lot of rides is keeping something current when they want, and it only gets 2 or 3 years old, and the technology's already starting to get out of date. But yeah, you sort of see that difference, right, between what is still there in Epcot, a couple of the older rides, versus what they've done at Hollywood Studios, especially. But maybe they should try and do something and update Mission Space in some way. Yeah,
I think it's tricky, isn't it? In terms of when you look at the teenagers, I look at my kids and I see what they consume on a day-to-day basis, whether that be tech, whether that be images, you know, whatever it is that they're looking at, you know, the rate of change of that is so fast that, you know, just to be able to produce something that would tick the boxes based on that's their experience and therefore their expectation, when, you know, a big attraction and a big company is never you can't get far enough ahead of the tech to be able to make it work, because by the time you built it, it's out of date. And we see that with Tron, you know, in Magic Kingdom. It's a great ride, but it's not what it should be in terms of the theming and the futuristic element of it. You know, it's really hard. So I think you've either got to go with making something timeless, Spaceship Earth, or
kitsch retro.
No pun intended. Or you've got to go with something that it doesn't matter. You can't keep up with the rate of change, and if you try, you're going to fail miserably.
I think as well, Claire, and going back to that whole the tech business itself, a lot of the things that they've got in development, they don't want people seeing before it goes into general circulation. So, they might be trying to develop something. They're not going to put it into Epcot.
No.
Because actually they don't, for example, Apple don't want Microsoft nicking all the ideas or Samsung nicking all the ideas. And so it then becomes that little closed shop, doesn't it? And actually putting it into the park would actually be quite a difficult thing as well to achieve. But
maybe that's why Epcot has stayed slightly retro kitsch. I think, you were talking about your experience when you went, John, and you're talking about the bus with the characters on.
Yeah.
And the instant image in my mind was Mickey and Goofy and Daisy and Minnie in their silver spacesuit costumes with the rainbow on the front, because that was just like the coolest costume. Somewhere I got a picture and I have no idea. It's somewhere in my parents' loft, I'm sure, on a printed shiny photograph in some album. Yeah. But I just remember those costumes. They were so cool. And I remember, those were like iconic 90s Epcot character costumes. Anyone thinking of that, and maybe it's just me, but I'm hoping some friends in the chat that sparks a little memory somewhere.
But if you think to like Tomorrowland in Magic Kingdom, that's that kind of stuck in a fixed time period, intentionally, like what I think they reference it as being the future that never was and always will be. It's like fixed in a certain time where it was looking forward to when one day we're going to go to the moon on a rocket kind of thing, and that encapsulates that kind of like ambition and desire to explore space, but it's kept at that 1960s kitsch kind of feel to it. And I think that sort of thing works well kind of as a capsule of time of saying that's kitschy, like tinfoil suits kind of spaceman kind of view.
Right. It's all a bit Ziggy Stardust, but I love it.
I was going to be controversial. I'll keep my mouth shut. I won't mention anything about the space vehicles being made out of aluminium foil, etc. It doesn't make sense to me. But hey ho, I'll pass on that.
I'm trying to think like Universe of Energy Ellen. Before Ellen was there.
Yeah.
That attraction to move the entire theatre seating.
Yeah.
Who thought that was a good idea? Who went, do you know what? Let's pile in 200 people and then move the entire theatre. I mean, that's insane. Someone's pitched that idea and everyone's gone, that's a great plan. Let's eat up. Like,
it must have been the same person who put the tacos in the middle of the lake,
Oh yeah. But the number of guests that attraction ate up, because there was
and for a long time. That was the thing. You
40-minute attraction.
If the park was quiet and that was busy, that was it. You were absolutely had the park to yourself. And I've got to admit, this photo is actually. I remember actually the day this picture was taken, and that was
the day closed.
The day after it shut. And there is a picture I've got of Alison and the boys when they were much smaller and much younger, and all three of them are just like, we were never fans of Ellen whatsoever, because it just went on for young kids. It just went on for what seemed like hours and hours.
Yeah.
Don't have young kids, John. That's I loved the lounge on the seat and 40 minutes in air conditioning.
The little nap that came alongside the Universe of Energy while we were learning about fossil fuels. You can have little sleeves.
Who doesn't want to be falling asleep with Bill Nye the Science Guy chatting away?
This is it.
Oh, brilliant.
But I just, there was there's such cool things that weren't cool, but they were cool because they were there. So if we talk Spaceship Earth, let's talk about the affectionately named massive golf ball.
I love it.
I do.
Even though it breaks every single time I go on it, I still go.
I love that the cameras don't really pick your face up very well. You get weird.
You look like Phantom of the Opera, isn't it? You get like half your face showing.
Yeah.
Or it catches you and you're like doing something random.
The smell of like 1970s grease and mechanical workings that's throughout the whole ride. The heat when you first get on it.
And the ripped black curtains as you're going up. And it's like, oh, you should really replace those.
Yeah. Oh.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's just like no other. I just can't think of any other attraction where Disney would accept that as the standard they're putting out. Because if you were to, like, you know, the backdrops are appalling. They're so shredded. And like the lights in the bit where you're coming down at the end and you've got all the twinkly lights. I love that bit. It's possibly my favourite bit of the whole thing. But half of them don't work. And then the bit that does work, you can see all the broken stuff at the edge. And I just love the fact that they haven't done anything to fix it.
What I would say though, Claire, and in fairness, when we got, was it 2019? We had, was it D23, and it was one of the first D23s that we did as a show. And what it did, they were going to completely revamp it. It was leaking. Yeah,
they had to close it because it was leaking.
Yeah, but they were going to put a new narrator on and things like that.
We had a conversation on the show about who the new.
But do you remember though? They teased that with Soaring.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. So you never know. They could have just teased that bit with Spaceship Earth, make out like Dame Judy wasn't going to return to it, and then surprise everybody when it reopens.
I've got to give Dame Judy a bit of credit as well, because actually when you go and you haven't been for 5 years and you still know word for word most of the narration, and it still gives you goosebumps because it's beautifully delivered. And then you get back to your villa and you then go and dig out the Jeremy Irons narration, and then you also get the Walter Cronkite narration, and actually all three are worth just a listen. And again, this is the wonder of YouTube in a way, that you can actually go back and you can actually you can go and see the retro part of it and actually just understand the fact of how, again, the evolution of the ride. Yeah, the technology is still the same, but actually it's nice. It's just like it's a lovely record of like basically a bit like taking pictures on all your trips. You've got them there where you can go and dip into a video and you can decide, I'll tell you what, we'll go back to opening day and we'll go back to 42 years, and we'll see exactly what was available, and we'll see who had that video camera way back in the day with the big, probably the size of a house, wasn't it? But it's lovely. I really like that whole thing of just how things have changed and how Spaceship Earth. And we're just going to put this picture up because this is, for me, this was just one of the moments of the whole of this summer, and going and seeing exactly how the lighting on the external part of Spaceship Earth just makes such a statement that you can see. You can see it from miles and miles around.
Gold star to whoever thought of that idea.
Just absolutely incredible.
Smashing it out of the park with that.
Yeah, it was. And what I would say, I was very fortunate when I think it was our last day, and we were in Epcot, and we actually hadn't been back to the front of the park before fireworks. And we were with Jason and his wife, and he said, have you seen this? And he made us come to and watch the actual light display. No, not many people know it's there. There's basically a light show there. Beacons of light, is it? It's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And for me, you're just like, you're thinking, that's the magic of actually a Disney holiday, and that's the magic that only, I don't know, something so simple, and that the beauty of that whole geodesic sphere is just absolutely incredible. It blew me away again and again. The first time we saw it at night, I remember we were leaving the park and we didn't want to leave. It was one of them moments where you're walking backwards, and we were taking picture after picture after picture.
This is
because it was stunning.
You can't take a bad picture of Spaceship Earth anymore. because especially at night, you know,
Yeah.
the lighting is so incredible. And
Yeah.
I agree with you that, as I said at the beginning, you know, that is the thing I think of when I think of Walt Disney World. It will always be Spaceship Earth, because there is nothing else like it. There's nowhere else in the world that I'm aware of has something like that with an attraction inside it. You know,
Yeah.
you go up inside it. That's
Yeah.
mad. And I remember,
Yeah.
like when you talk to people and they say, it's not really, like, no, you go up inside it and you circle around, and you'll stop sometimes when you're not supposed to.
At the wrong time, isn't it? Yeah.
Extra, read
Yeah.
all about it.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, though, I think I was listening to the other day. I was listening to Deep Art Radio, and they actually had the Jeremy Irons narration on Deep Art Radio, and I haven't heard that for so long. And I was listening to it, going, "Gosh, it was quite different." Judy and her Renaissance, which makes me twitch every time she says it. It really
same for me.
It's really uncomfortably when she says that, and I'm just like, that you didn't enjoy saying it like that. You can hear the disdain in her voice when she says it. But
it's a thespian disdain, I think.
It totally can. But the Jeremy Irons version, I'm just like, this is Scar doing the narration for Spaceship Earth. How cool is that? And it's just like it. I mean, it's so good. And I think we talked about this when they suggested they were going to change the narrator. I think you should be able to go in and not know, a bit like Soaring. We've said before, you know, you don't know whether you're going to get around the world or over California. Why can't they mix up the narration so you don't know who you're going to get? Each hour, swap it round, you know. Yeah. So you might get Judy, you might get Walter, you might get Jeremy. And it's just like, that would be super cool in terms of...
Walter's not gone from the attraction, though, is he?
No.
He appears on the screen in the 1969 house.
He does.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be a valid thing to have that as even whether you can change and pick your own narration for your own ride vehicle.
Oh, see, this is what I love about when we do shows about Epcot. We get into the Imagineering side of things, and we come up with like little nuggets like this. So
if they're harking back to older elements of Epcot, they could provide that as an offering in the same way they periodically have been bringing back the old Soaring over California. Maybe they should bring back an option for
it's spot
old
on.
narration.
I think it's well. Yeah, I think Heather's in the chat mentioned the fact Walter Cronkite for her will always be the voice of Spaceship Earth. And
if you're a space geek like me, his voice is still instantly recognizable. If you've watched space shuttle videos and moon landings and
I think we're on to something here. I think that's another one. So tomorrow morning, I'll listen back to the show. I'll write down all the things that we've come up with so far, and I'll fire them off. To
get on the phone to your Disney Imagineering colleagues, and
that's exactly it. Yeah, so I've got a little bit of an idea for you. It might cost you a couple of quid, but you'll be all right. We'll get away with it.
I mean, we haven't even stepped foot outside Future World, or what's it now called? World Celebration, World Journey. I can't remember what it's called.
Thingamajig.
Yeah, the front bit.
Yeah.
The front bit
Well,
on the map.
before we move on, I'm just going to put this on because this is for me. This is
I know
one
what's
of the.
coming. I'm so excited.
No, not yet. What is this? And actually, again, it just needs a bit of TLC in order for them balloons to be made to go up and down once again, like I'm sure they once did. I'm absolutely convinced that they used to go up and down. I'm sure they did. Certainly, I'm not sure. Maybe it's maybe that's just my imagination. When I was,
I don't think people realise they're the seasons of the year.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think anyone's realised.
It's beautiful. I just love. I love walking in there, but also equally, I'd forgotten just how much I love Soaring as a ride, as an experience, and it's just like when you think of how you plus things and things do change and things like that. But I'm just there's something about the Land Pavilion which is rather special. And I think, Claire, it probably is time, isn't it?
It must be time. It's 9:15. It must be time.
Now,
can we hold on a second, because You're moving off the land very quickly.
No, we're not.
No, we're staying there. We're staying. I've got a
That's
special.
fine. That's good.
There's a special treat for everyone, Simon, because we've talked about this so many times, and we've talked about the fact that if you go to Living with the Land, one of the things that is missing from it and should be reinstated immediately is the actual listen to the land song. And what we've tended to do previously is just like, can I either just try and sing it a little bit, or people are reminded of it. I've actually found it, and so I'll play a snippet as long as probably about 20 seconds, because at least then we won't get sort of anyone accusing
I don't think
me.
anyone cares about this.
No, I know, but this is brilliant.
Just make believe you're a tiny little seed. A tiny little seed that's reaching up to meet your need. With the right amount of faith and the right amount of earth, you'll grow to see the sunshine on your day of birth. Let's listen to the land we all love. Nature's plan will shine above. Listen to the land, listen to the land. Let's listen to the land we all love. Nature's plan will shine above. Listen to the land, listen to the land. When springtime comes.
Oh,
I can't get over how open the pavilion was. When you look at that picture with it, I've forgotten it was blue inside to start with.
yeah.
But that it wasn't loads of seating for Sunshine Seasons. I've forgotten how open it was downstairs.
You can still hear the instrumental version of that. It's still on the ride.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where?
I'm sure it's on the out. It's on the outdoor. You know, when you go through the outdoor farm area.
Is it?
And don't you hear?
You sure it wasn't
used
just me
to hear
singing?
it.
Because I used to sing it really loudly when I'm on the
I
ride.
don't know. I must admit that's the one thing I always remember about any
I'm
trip.
gonna have to go and ride it in a couple of weeks and check.
Yeah.
I will go.
You've started something now, Simon. That's it. We're in trouble.
If only we knew someone who was in Walt Disney World at the moment who could go and check for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
He's used his one-day park ticket at Epcot. That's it.
I'm sure the bit where you pass Garden Grill, where there's the farmhouse. I think the background loop there, I'm sure, is the guitar part from that track.
Oh, I will check.
Yeah.
It's just the instrumental version, but I think it might be.
Oh man, I hope so. Heather said you used to have the cast members on the boats. Yep, you used to have a cast member sitting on the boat telling you what you were looking at. And I miss that. That was
in
so
the
cool.
days when they used to trust cast members to tell them to not actually.
It's like the safari, but the the plant version, the vegan safari. It's Living with the Land was one of those. That's what I was talking about at the beginning. You know, there were some things that my parents loved and I just didn't get. And now, like Living in the Land would be one of my top 5 attractions. I love it so much. I can literally go round and round and round.
Yeah. Can I say another thank you to Heather in the chat? I'm not losing it quite yet.
No.
The balloons did go up and down, and I'm glad I'm not the only person who
They've obviously sacked the person with a pulley.
I think
there's probably some cast member with a pulley every 30 seconds, and they've
budget cuts. That's what.
This is it. They decided not to keep.
There's probably something. There's a part that needs replacing that they can't replace or can't get to, and just leave it. No one will notice. That's it. Yeah.
So I'd say Living with the Land was always one of the attractions that fascinated me most about Epcot, because I thought I still think it's one of the best things at Epcot to go and do.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something that links that whole thing with you and Disney, that you're going around looking at them growing something that's then the produce is served. I think that's a really, like, that loop is a really nice thing. And I don't know, just there's something that gives me a nice warm fuzzy feeling about Living with the Land. That's always been one of those things that I was thinking, best ride in Epcot. It still beats every other ride for me. I'll go and ride that thing all day long.
Yeah. It's a really funny little story, and I'm sure Josh and Morg won't mind us sharing this. It's actually
we haven't checked. Did Ben check on them? Has he been and checked the bananas?
I know, and that's the thing. They went every single time they were in Epcot, and this is like a proud mum and dad. Proud mum and dad's on the screen here, Simon, because actually, you've done a decent job. Is when your kids are going and they're going on Living with the Land because they're checking on the crop of bananas and taking a picture of the bananas. If one of them couldn't go on, and they were saying, "Look, bananas are nearly ready; they're ripening," and so it became their thing for the whole summer that they were exchanging photos of how ripe the bananas were on Living with the Land. And so before we actually went home, we actually went and rode it for one last banana picture, and that's how bad it had become. I was just thinking that is just such, and it's so beautiful because it fits in with exactly what you've just said about it. It has that ability to make you feel sort of tingly and just it's just
the thing's not changed the entire time I've been going to Disney World. But I will happily go and ride that thing multiple times every trip.
This is it. And actually, I think maybe we need to set up an area in the Waffles Arms Banana Watch area, and people can go. Go and drop in their banana crop.
You have to be careful when you start talking about banana watching. You never know where that's going to end up.
I even thought about that. The crop of bananas in Living with the Land. That's what I'm talking about, people. Nothing more than that.
One thing that is good about the holiday overlay for Living with the Land.
Oh, it's amazing.
Which again, it's back again for this year as well. Which is
glimmering greenhouses. I think.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. But the queue is enormous.
It's the only time you get any demand above 30 minutes for Living with the Land, I think, is when it's glimmering greenhouses.
Swear to you, last December, Anna and I were there with Zach, and we queued for nearly an hour to go in the greenhouse to see the lights, and it was worth every minute of the queue and the carpeted walls that you have to slide down. It was so good. I love it. Christmas holiday overlay is so cool. And genius, let's just stick some fairy lights everywhere, and then we get a massive queue, and it's going to eat up loads of guests. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What was interesting, again, towards the end of August, is actually they set aside different areas within the ride to basically show little bits of the Food and Wine Festival as well. Yeah. I just felt, for me, that again, being proactive and actually being prepared to just try something a little bit different, just to bring the festival into the context of the ride as well. And I just thought, someone at Epcot gets it, and someone at Epcot actually understands what we go and absolutely enjoy.
Why we go.
Yeah, and just read that little tweak here, little tweak there. But it shows somebody cares, and somebody's actually got that creative flair that has been desperately in need.
John, it's 24 minutes past 9.
Wow.
We've got 6 minutes to do World Showcase.
That's Sammy's speed. That.
Don't stop anywhere. Just keep going round.
Yeah.
I mean, World Showcase is, again, it's just such a unique concept of let's travel around the world in, a mile and 3/4.
Yeah.
It was the most daunting thing when I first visited Disney World to see the size of that.
It's huge, isn't it? When you look and you go, that's a long way in the sun because there's no shade on that pathway.
But then I think you eat up the mile quicker than you realise when you walk round. Before you know it, you're halfway round.
Yeah.
And then you're prime stopping for some air conditioning in the American Pavilion. So
yes, to watch Voices of Liberty.
Yeah,
that's the correct thing to do.
And
I think that there are some real gems around World Showcase that have lasted the test of time. So Voices of Liberty being one of those. There are some things that we sadly said goodbye to, whether that be British Invasion.
Yeah.
And who were the guys in Canada?
Off kilter.
Their cage is still there. They're just not. And then they had those wood like the hatchet men.
Yeah.
Things.
Just
what they called
doesn't work.
Lumberjacks.
It was crackers.
That just makes me think of Monty Python. So that's the problem.
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
Yeah. but then there's also some of the stuff that has gone away but then is creeping back. So like the Oh Canada film it's now Canada. It's called something different. It's not called Oh Canada, and there's no Martin Short, and I do miss him.
Yes.
But the song is still there at the end, so you can join in with the Canada song. French and English, both parts are equal. And I love all that. The retroness of being able to sing the Canadian harmony loudly when nobody else is. It's a high point of my holiday. Even better when we're with somebody who knows all the words and all the harmonies.
I have to say the thing I love about World Showcase is when there's a festival on, not necessarily for the food, but I absolutely love the mini concert series that they put on through the festival.
Oh yeah,
that becomes like a thing that I don't know how we've managed it over the years, but we've always been at the time that Starship are on. Even if we move the dates, Starship always seem to be the band that are playing.
This is it.
So Starship and We Built This City on Rock and Roll has like become a song that we associate with holidays.
Yeah.
It's a San Francisco origin tune anyway, because that's where the band were from the Bay. But we've always, every food and wine festival or flower and garden, we always seem to hit a Starship concert. And I think they get some really big names there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great space to have, that you can go and see some bands that are really well known, maybe some that are towards the end of their careers or twilight years of their
twilight years. I think that's a polite way of saying it,
That's
isn't
from
it?
yesteryear.
Yeah.
But I think such a great opportunity and a great space, and it makes that the part for me when the festivals are on quite a social thing to go and do, because you can go and sit and watch the band with people.
You have a drink at the back and stand, and you can still see it, you can still hear it. You don't have to be sat in the rows. And
for me, that brings a different thing with Epcot, because you can go there for the evening. The food around the showcase, there's some really good places like Via Napoli to go and get dinner, and then just go and watch the band and get a drink afterwards. It's like go in just for the evening to see that. I think lots of locals do the same thing, right? They've got an annual pass that is Epcot evenings, and you just go in there for the evenings when the festivals are on and make the most of it. And why not? I think that's what I'd be doing if I lived there.
I think you're right in terms of like that staging area in the American Pavilion. There's so many things that happen. I'm just thinking like Christmas, you've got the candlelight processional 3 times a night, and the names that they attract to be able to do that. Yeah. This is not some second-rate operation. You've got amazingly famous people who are fighting each other to come and do that presentation. Yeah. And the number of casts that are in it and the orchestra, it's just quite awe-inspiring, actually. It may not be my particular version of the nativity in my brain. I like to have a donkey and things like that. But for the people who are there and enjoying it, it's so it's emotional, and it's overwhelming, actually, some of it. And to have that, it's free. Everyone can go. There are no limits. Nobody's going to turn you away. And if there's no seats, then you can just stand at the back and watch, and that's okay. Yeah. And I think that the value added to some of those concert series into what you get from Epcot is incredible. I quite like sitting by the fountain in American Adventure Pavilion. That fountain in the center, you can sit there and you can see everything that's on stage. You can definitely hear it. And just sit there with a drink and snack, and you don't have to be in the middle of it to be able to. Although Starship were very good, I enjoyed watching Starship with you and Robin earlier this year. I'd never seen them, so it was obviously just happened to be there at the same time.
Cool. And again, it was
amazing.
Certain days it was like, Starship.
The keyboard player was the star of the show for me, and his power stance as he was playing that was amazing. But they were so good. I'm really pleased to have seen them live, and I'm sure that there are many bands that people go and see live just because they happen to be there and they have a great evening.
Boys to Men. We've seen Boys to Men a fair few times as well, and they are brilliant live as well. They are so good.
I'm there in a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to think. I think it might be Hanson or.
I'd go and see Hanson.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
It might be a bit of a short set, though, might it? Yeah, unless they figure the way to string Mbop out for like 25 minutes.
I'm sure they can. And they'll keep that one to the end, I'm sure. But
yeah.
Who knows? I can't remember.
Is it time to share this little moment of magic with everybody as well? Because actually,
yes,
we can't talk Epcot without bringing back the rig and actually the dash through the cinema at the end to avoid having to watch the film.
Nice seating. I love the seating in that cinema.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful, especially the fact that it's always empty and it looks stunning. It's architectural seating. What's
really strange now, because for a lot of people, Maelstrom was just the epitome of going to Epcot. You know, it was never busy. There was never a queue. You just basically get on the boat, you ride it, you come off, and you probably wouldn't go back and ride it again. Now we've had Frozen for a number of years. Again, like I think Simon, you said earlier in the show, where you get people clamoring for the retro part of it. And suddenly the people who are, and now deemed as being sort of Maelstrom sort of geeks from the past, now think, well, actually, can we have our ride back, please? You've had your Frozen moment. Let's have a little bit of a rethink, a little bit of a rejig, so we actually get to see Norway as it was meant to be. But just I love Maelstrom. I just thought it was just a fantastic experience.
I would take it over Frozen any day.
Yeah,
any day with the trolls and over the falls you go.
Yeah,
all of that. I think it's brilliant, and it just shows a little bit of Norwegian culture. Not a huge amount, oil rigs and trolls, but it was characteristic. I never ever found the hidden Mickey in the mural behind the the queue line area. There was that great big trawler fisherman Svalbard whole great big massive wall mural, and there was hidden Mickeys in it. I never found them, and I must have ridden Maelstrom well over 40-50 times. I looked every single time and never ever found them.
Isn't it weird?
I just Frozen's great. I'm sure that for some people that ride is, it must be, because the queue line is always enormous.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do it for me. It's not anything to do with Frozen, actually. I like Frozen. I like Frozen 2 better than I like Frozen. But I just I don't see the need to ride that attraction. Yeah. Which is a shame, because they spent a lot of time and money doing it.
And you can. I think we've said this in the past. I think we were talking about putting film overlays onto decent rides and things like that. But you can see why it's been done, and you can actually understand the thinking behind it. But they chose the wrong ride.
I just think it was opportunistic, John, because that was at the point where Frozen was massive. They had 6-hour queues to meet Anna and Elsa.
Yeah.
And then they were like, we're going to do something else Frozen quickly because we need to shove something in because of the fact it's exploded around the world.
Yeah.
And so what can we do? Well, let's change that attraction. Let's make it. And it looks lovely. They've got the summer house there, which is beautiful inside. And the Anna and Elsa meet and greet is brilliant. But I don't think it was needed. I think they could have done the meet and greet building and left Maelstrom, but we all have the ride that we wish hadn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, and I think as well. I think if you look at an aerial photograph of Epcot, there is so much space that is not being used, not being utilised, and they could have done a little bit more to actually retain the original Maelstrom, but still put something Frozen. Just saying, but obviously they've done it on the cheap, because actually just basically rebranding Maelstrom was cheaper than starting from scratch. So, it gets done. It's a shame, but you can see, I can understand it.
It'd be cool to do a show about the Epcot things that never were, like when you talk about the Snow White attraction that was meant to happen in Germany, that never. There was
a whole lot of pavilions that never came to be there. I mean, some really interesting ones, like They were planning on building a Soviet Union pavilion. I mean, I don't know how that would have gone down.
Not to be political, but give it a couple of months. You never know what might happen.
Yeah.
Now, strangely enough,
it would have just been fenced off and sanctions imposed on it, sort of thing. I don't know how they would have represented that in a park.
Empty shops in a queue.
Yeah, you've actually hit upon something that actually is on the list to do next week. And we are talking about things that never actually made it into the parks. And there was bits of Imagineering geniuses that actually got put to one side. They never actually made it into park life. So they got, there's joined up thinking with all these things that we do. People
watching and listening might have thought that I'd looked ahead as to what we were doing next week. I haven't. Because that would be asking just a little bit too much of me. So I didn't know that, but that's exciting. That
there you go, Claire.
Exactly the thing that I want to talk about.
So this time next week,
you could dedicate an entire show though to the ideas of pavilions that they were thinking of for Epcot. Costa Rica, Switzerland, Australia, Venezuela.
I think we could do a whole show about the pavilions that they thought of, and then the pavilions that we think they should do, and the attraction and the restaurants that we think they should put into those pavilions.
This is absolutely seamless into next week's show. This is like, when Ben and Beckett come back from holiday, we're all over this. It's absolutely sorted. Yeah, we've got this all. Yeah.
And I know we've talked about before, could you do like in the France pavilion, can we have like a 1920s speakeasy, like cocktail Paris? Almost, that would be awesome. That'd be so nice, just to have like a little cocktail bar.
They need to bring back smoking in that part of the park.
It is France, so
just to make it real, just to make it realistic.
Yeah, because that's you could definitely change some of that pavilion round the back into like a cool little 1920s jazz bar, which would be amazing.
They need to have vans parked up covered in graffiti.
Yeah.
Go for total realism.
I was going to say rubbish bags piled high on the street. That would be doing a disservice to Paris.
Dog poo on the street. That would be exactly on. That's fake Disney dog poo, obviously. But that would be exactly correct. But there's so many things that could be done, that haven't, or things that should be done that haven't been done. I can't wait to talk about it next week. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it will be. I think as well. I think just before we sort of wrap up as well, you go around World Showcase and you get to see how many times everyone thinks, it's been neglected. At the moment, I've got a real problem with what they're not doing with Morocco. Obviously, since they redid the tiling and lost that original sort of look of it looked beautiful. They've changed the tiling, obviously, because it was getting a bit sharp around the edges, I think. But it's lost kind of some of its gloss. But Disney have taken all the restaurants back in-house as well. So again, some of the actual food offering is perhaps not as good as it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But each of these pavilions make a point of going right to the back of them, because you're missing out on the actual detail, and loads of people miss out on it. I know we joke about the time Sammy had never been into any of them, which is one of the highlights of doing this for over 5 years. But the more you go into the pavilions and the more you go exploring, you find so many different places where you forget you're actually in a theme park, and you're just absorbed within the atmosphere. And I think that for me is what Epcot does so well around World Showcase. And that hasn't really been forgotten. I think people have to go and find it, and I think that for me is a key point there.
Can you imagine walking around World Showcase and just staying on the main pathway?
No, not really.
Literally not setting foot into the Mexico pyramid. Or
it makes me laugh every time. I remember recording the show.
There's something inside it. Yes. There's a ride inside this, Sammy. Yeah, and a restaurant, and loads of merch, and a
Yeah.
tequila bar. You just go inside and have a little look.
And a massive queue of people all trying to buy
Yeah.
margaritas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the line last weekend? I think it was. It went all the way back
crazy.
past
Yeah.
the almost to the refreshment port to get into Cava to tequila. It was just insane. I mean, let's face it, the margaritas are fine. They do not need that sort of queue.
No.
You know, just go somewhere else for margarita, people.
I wondered if it was just like a TikTok event or something.
No, I think it was just
people were just going for pictures with a margarita, because actually there's no rhyme or reason when you can go for drinks all the way round.
You get margarita somewhere else.
Why go queue up there?
No,
Yeah.
not necessary.
Just Space 220, the cocktails. We covered it last week, right? Space 220 for cocktails. That's where
your mind's still there,
just
Simon.
still thinking of that. Yeah.
I still haven't. Even since last week, I still haven't been. Yeah, I haven't booked very much for a couple of weeks' time. I don't know where I'm going to go. So.
Oh, there you go. You see. Before we do finish, I know we've mentioned about the parade and how amazing that was. It would be remiss of us not to mention the fireworks show. Yeah, well, there you go, Barbie.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Barbie.
No, I'm going to talk about fireworks, because actually, I think for everybody, Illuminations, in whatever form you ever saw it, will forever be just again, coming back to what I said to begin with, it's the music that stays with you forever in Epcot, and how you've got that soundtrack in your own mind, where you're watching a fireworks show, but the music means so much, and yet now you're going to see the most magnificent fireworks show, but the music doesn't do it for me yet. I need to go and see it again and again. It doesn't get me there.
Illuminations for me just deserves like the massive air grab. It is like the holy grail of fireworks shows.
I have to say for me, the best version of fireworks at Epcot were Illuminations with the holiday finale.
Oh, see, I never saw that.
During the holiday season, that extra bit was that for me still the best fireworks display they had there.
Never saw that.
And then they did it when they added the New Year's Eve countdown as well.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
So I still think that for me was the best set of fireworks they had there. And Harmonious, I think, didn't get the love I think it maybe should have had. I think because there was always a negative thing about the giant tacos and the Stargate on the lagoon, but I think it was a good show. And I'm a bit with John. It's good what they put there, but I don't have the same feeling that I had with always thinking about seeing Illuminations. And it got a bit samey towards the end, but I always loved seeing the special endings at certain times of year when they were.
Yeah. If nothing else, it was just that start as well.
It was familiar.
Yeah.
Comforting hug familiarity.
Yeah, and that coming together.
All the drums at the beginning,
and then the blowing out of the light. I just feel that was just.
And when the pavilions all lit up one by one.
Yeah.
And it's just like lovely. The lighting on it. And it was amazing. The torches and the stuff. We go on.
Oh, yeah. It's just, it is.
Epcot. That's Epcot for me. That we go on, and they do play that every single night on the loop down by Spaceship Earth. And it brings back so many memories. And I love the fact that they're still using that track.
They have to. It's part of what I think we've all, I think if nothing else through this show, we've actually shown what we all love about Epcot is the fact that they don't just file something away and forget about it. It's always there. It's always remembered in whatever form they can. There will be a little nod to it in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Well, look at Epcot Forever. That as a show brought back. Yeah. I mean, not a great show. It was just an interim thing, but I think the music in it was great because it just referenced all of those historic points of Epcot. It was just a great summary of like the one little spark to New Horizons and the original Universe of Energy music. It was like even veggie fruit appeared
Yeah,
in there,
it
right?
was,
It's
yeah,
like
it was,
all
yeah.
of those little bits that just snipped in, a little bit of soaring, and I think that had a different little kind of gave everybody an opportunity to reminisce about old Epcot. But I don't think that got the love it probably kind of deserved as well for the like. I think they had thought that out quite well into a set of acts and groups of music that were meaningful, but I don't think people saw that. I think everybody was still annoyed about the loss of Illuminations.
Yeah. And then the second time it wasn't quite so good, and they were just relieved that Harmonious had gone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because they left all the bits in where the kite the kites were being flown around on the back of the jet skis, but the music was there, but there was nothing happening.
Yeah.
Very odd. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Amazing.
No,
oh,
absolutely brilliant.
Time.
I know, and actually, yeah, I think I'm going to say a massive thank you to everyone in the chat as well, who, we've tried not to be really self-indulgent here. I don't feel that we have been. People in the chat have come up with so many different things, and you've kept us going through so many little
Sugar
different,
Ray.
Yeah, so many different little bits about Epcot that you have to be there at the right time and place to actually, it's a bit like yourself going to see Starship every time, Simon. It changes. It changes daily because something different is going on. And I think, like I said when we were talking about Horizons earlier, I was hoping the show was going to be an opportunity for a rant about, bring back the past, but actually let's embrace the future, because actually that's the type of park that we actually know and love. And how much Epcot itself reinvents itself is properly true to what Walt Disney actually wanted his theme parks to be. And I feel really strongly about that. Having been able to go back this year and see after all the construction walls came down after all that time, but to go back in and see something that is still so vibrant and it is still such a special park to actually go and spend some time. So it's been lovely spending some time just being able to reminisce, but also I think we've done a bit of Imagineering along the way as well. So Claire and Simon, thank you both so much. It's been so good. I love these shows where we just go off on a tangent, and it really
takes us.
It's lovely.
Imagineering will get the email on by Friday, won't they, John?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Definitely. And
come in exchange for a job. If they give me a job, they can have the ideas for free.
Yeah.
That can be the commission.
That'd be even better. So, like I said, next week we're going to kind of continue this on, which is even better. It's even funnier because simply we've got so much that we would love to go into Epcot that we're going to talk about that as well, and what should have gone in, what hasn't gone in, what might come in the future. Again, I did see somebody in the chat, and I've missed what the name was, who were joining us for the first time. They've subscribed to the channel, and massive welcome to people. We know there's loads of people joining us and basically joining the fun every Wednesday night. I've said this before. If you just need just that a little change of scene, a little bit of positivity putting in the middle of your week, come and join us. We are here on a Wednesday, and actually it helps us, because actually when you have a really horrible week and you get to Wednesday night, it's so nice to know that we can come and we can share a Disney chat, and we can actually share it with friends as well. So I appreciate everybody being there. In between times, don't forget, podcast out yesterday. Go and give it a listen. I'll ask questions next week. And also, that's it. I'll have a quick quiz next week. But also, come and join us in the Waffler's Arms. It's on Facebook community. Come and join in the chat and actually just share some of the things that, some of the ideas, maybe some of the things that we haven't spoken about tonight that you want us to you feel aggrieved that we've not mentioned your favorite ride or whatever. Until we meet again next Wednesday, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
See you real soon.
See you real soon.
Now my wheels in motion and my windows open with the wind blowing.